The clavicle is a bone that you can easily find on the surface of the body. It almost pops out. It is a long bone that is the only long bone that is positioned horizontally in the body. Here it is in the skeleton. Why is it called the clavicle? The word clavicle comes from a Latin word clavis, which means key. And the word clavicle is a diminutive form of the word. So clavicle means little key. Why is it called this? The clavicle, along with the scapula, forms the pectoral girdle, which is the platform which supports the upper limb. But the only place where the pectoral girdle directly articulates with the axial skeleton is here, at the sternoclavicular joint. The pectoral girdle is highly mobile, as it has to be to allow the wide range of movements that the upper limb is capable of. As these various movements occur, the clavicle tends to turn like a key. So the anatomists compare this to the turning motion that would occur with a key like this ancient Roman key, where the end that fits into the lock, the bit, is analogous to the sternoclavicular joint, and the key turns like the shank of the clavicle. If we go back to the clavicle and look at the ends of this long bone, if we take a look at the lateral end, where the bone articulates with the acromion of the scapula, we can see that this end is compressed and elliptical in shape. If we look next at the medial end, the end that articulates with the sternum to form the sternoclavicular joint, we see that this end by comparison is round, which you might expect considering that this end will rotate around the axis of this long bone. Now, how can you remember this? Well, one way you might is by imagining that the clavicle is a cigarette, and one end of the cigarette will be compressed by your lips. This end would correspond to the acromial end, and the other end, which you light and which you will eventually stub out, this end will form the stub, and this is the sternal end. Now, this way may not be the best way to remember this, but at least it's original. Let's get back to the actual clavicle. There are two clavicles, and if you look at each detached from the skeleton, how can you tell the right from the left? Let's look at this bone from above and below. Here we have the isolated right clavicle, with a superior view on top and an inferior view below. If we look at the superior view and draw a line from the middle of the sternal end to the middle of the acromial end, note that the medial 2/3 of the shank is convex anteriorly, and the lateral 1/3 is convex posteriorly. So this is one way you can differentiate the right from the left. But if that is too subtle for you, there is another, easier way. If we take a look at this drawing, we note that this highly mobile bone is stabilized by two ligaments. One ligament attaches the clavicle to the first rib by what is called the costoclavicular ligament, and the other ligament attaches the clavicle to the coracoid process of the scapula by the coracoclavicular ligament. You would expect the pull of these ligaments to leave markings on the bone, and they do. But first, through the magic of Photoshop, let's look at the left side and look at an actual left clavicle from above. Again, note that the medial 2/3 is convex anteriorly and the lateral 1/3 is convex posteriorly. But another thing to note is how smooth the superior surface is. You can feel this yourself by palpating your own clavicle underneath your skin. If we flip this bone around and look at the inferior surface, we can see the markings where the previously alluded to ligaments attach. On the medial end, the sternal end, there is a rough raised marking that is called the costal tuberosity. And on the lateral end, the acromial end, there is a raised region that from some angles is cone-shaped. This marking is called the conoid tubercle. That's about it for this relatively simple bone. However, I did have to use quite a few images for this video, and here are the image attributions. Again, you can take a short quiz on the information in this video. And here is another video of Apollo, and this is the second part of the great mouse hunt.